Welcome to Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app and YouTube channel. Please hit subscribe, by the way, if you haven't yet. Big show today. NHL picks with Michael Leboff coming up. Stuckey will also give out men's college basketball futures. Plus, we have Matt Moore's NBA State of the Union. But we start with the NFL. The negotiating period ahead of free agency is open, and this just in, Kirk Cousins has agreed to terms with the Falcons. Russell Wilson, you probably heard, plans to sign a one-year deal with the Steelers. Also, the Eagles are signing Saquon Barkley for 3 years. Tony Pollard signing a 3-year deal with the Titans, and the Packers are expected to sign Josh Jacobs. So who better to react to this than our NFL betting expert, Simon Hunter? Good to see you, friend. Let's start with the latest quarterback news and Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. What's your reaction?
I love the move for Kirk, right? He's getting out of the North, and that's a smart move to me. Like, Jordan Love looks pretty good after their first year. Goff in Detroit looks like they're going to be pretty good for the next couple of years. And who knows what the Bears are going to do with the number one pick. Now he's heading to the South, where he's facing off against Baker and Derek Carr, and it's just, a little easier also with Bryce Young in there. So I like the move for him. The fact that he probably could have got maybe more money or whatever he was looking for from the Vikings, they probably would have matched, but it seemed like he just wanted to move out of that division into a different team. So for Atlanta, it's a big deal for them. They now have a quarterback that could lose in the first round for them to Daniel Jones. So they should be very excited as Atlanta Falcon fans, but at least they have someone to get them there. And that's half the battle if you're a football fan, is having a quarterback that can get you there. And we know Kirk can do that. So he'll be the best quarterback they've had since, mid, 2020, 17, 2016, since Matt Ryan was really good for them. So I'm sure Atlanta's really excited to have a good quarterback once again.
What do you think this means for the Vikings and potentially Justin Fields?
Yeah, I don't know. The market shifted where apparently it wasn't good at the combine for him. And teams that were talking about the Bears thought they were gonna have some good value on him, maybe a second or third round pick, but it looks like they're gonna just have to take what they can get for him. Because they just can't hold on to him. It's gonna be a weird situation. People are like, well, why not just hold on to him and let him and Williams play together? That's like living with your ex. That's just weird. Like, no one should have to do that unless you really have to, and they really don't have to make that move. So the Justin Fields market keeps getting smaller, but still think there's some teams to go get him. Like, even though Pittsburgh went and got Russell Wilson, why not still go get Justin Fields? I mean, why not? And like, Kenny Pickett be your third quarterback? So it's, to me, there's still a bunch of moves that could still be made for him. I just don't think the value is there. The Bears thought they were going to get a high pick. It's just they're not going to get the high of a pick anymore for him.
Well, speaking of Russell Wilson and Pittsburgh, what is your opinion on that fit?
Love it. It's a great deal for the team. And if you're someone that wants to bet on Pittsburgh, this is what you've been waiting for, them to get a quarterback. I saw a crazy stat that they've had 23 total passing touchdowns since Ben Roethlisberger retired. Russell Wilson had 23 passing touchdowns last season. So even though he's not that good, he's much better than what they've had. And in a simple offense, which you assume Arthur Smith will put around him, he should do well there. So he helped them out by taking a cheap deal and a prove yourself kind of deal. And I think they're going to reward him with making him the starter. But they still might bring in someone else. It's just they're not tied too much to him, right? It's only 1.2 million. He signed the papers. So great move for them. They're not invested much in it. It's a much needed upgrade for Pittsburgh at the quarterback position.
I agree. I'm excited to see it. One thing I'm not excited to see, Saquon Barkley in an Eagles uniform. I'm here in New York. This just does not sit well with me. You're an Eagles fan. Quick thoughts on him going to this rival.
I mean, as an Eagles fan, I'm excited, but as someone that like knows the math and everything behind football and the analytics, it's a weird move by Howie. I don't really get it. Like our best season ever was with Garrett Blunt and a rookie at the running back position. It's like it's just a position you can go cheap on and get production there. But how do I not love it? Saquon's an incredible running back, and now he's behind an incredible offensive line. Even though Kelsey's retired, I don't think the line's going to go down that much. Their grade's still going to be an A plus to an A on the season. They're so strong across the board. So Barkley can stay healthy with that offensive line. Yeah, that's a pretty incredible upgrade. But the money, I don't know. Like, I guess the cap's gone up so much now. Maybe the money's not that bad, but just interesting how he usually doesn't really spend on the running back position, went out and did it. But yeah, pretty crazy day for running backs. A bunch of guys getting new teams, new homes, and Saquon Barkley coming to a division rival, Philadelphia, is pretty insane.
On the surface, it almost feels like the Eagles were like, yeah, we'll pay him a little more just to like, I don't know, stick it to the Giants a little bit. But in the same vein, we have Josh Jacobs going to the Packers, like a running back of that caliber. What do you think's the better fit, Saquon and the Eagles or Jacobs and the Packers?
I would say better fit, I guess, would be Barkley, just because he knows our division. So he knows exactly the kind of defenses and what he needs to do. And again, this is the best offensive line he's ever had. The Giants' offensive line was terrible. Josh Jacobs it's a bigger deal to me because he felt like he was the soul of that Raiders offense. And Antonio Pierce really loved him and wanted him to come back. And he kind of looked at it and just said, you guys don't have a quarterback. Like, I want to go somewhere with a quarterback I can believe in. And it's interesting. He's kind of tying himself to Jordan Love here in his prime. So big deal for Josh Jacobs and Green Bay. And I love the idea of them upgrading at that position where Aaron Jones was really good. He just couldn't really stay on the field. This is going to be a big deal for them at the position. If he can stay healthy, obviously that's always a question with the running back position, but Josh Jacobs to the Green Bay Packers is a great move.
Well, you mentioned a better O-line for Saquon to work with. He's also going to have a better quarterback in Jalen Hurts. So I'm sure he's excited just to hopefully be more competitive. And lastly, just some other running backs on the move here. So DeAndre Swift goes to the Bears, Tony Pollard to the Titans, same deal, 3 years, $24 million. What do you make of those two?
Fun for fantasy football. I would say that those are the kind of moves. Like, neither of these teams I really think anyone takes too serious about making a Super Bowl run, right? They're both, you're going to be young teams with young quarterbacks and kind of rebuild mode. For Swift, that could be really enticing to bet on him in a couple of props during the season. I love the move for him just because it seems like the Bears do have a good running scheme. The last couple seasons, any guys they put in there would run pretty well, but that was with Justin Fields. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they use the running back position now when they do take the number 1 pick. We assume is Williams. Is he gonna bode well with them? That's a lot of questions there, but the Swift one to me is a bigger deal than Pollard. I had a lot of high hopes for him, and he kind of disappeared to start the season. But he was better the second half of the season for the Cowboys. But I just don't think he's a bell cow. And now he'll be splitting carries in Tennessee. Good move for him. He got his money, but yeah, nothing that really moves the needle.
What a day. Simon Hunter, you know him from the Favorites podcast. Thanks so much for jumping on Green Dot Daily.
Thank you.
Top NBA storylines from the weekend include a wild stat line for Anthony Davis. He's the first player in league history to have at least 25 points, 25 rebounds, 5 assists, and 5 steals in one game as the Lakers beat the T-Wolves. Alperen Sengun had an MRI today on his right knee and ankle after getting injured in Sunday's win over the Kings. And the 76ers and Knicks combined for just 152 points yesterday. It's the lowest NBA total since 2016. With that, we turn the floor over to our NBA Commander-in-Chief and President of Buckets, Matt Moore, for his weekly State of the Union address.
My fellow NBA fans, always glad to be with you. This week, we'll talk about the good, the bad, and one other thing. We'll start the New Orleans Pelicans, who are 25-1 to win the Western Conference and might just be that sleeper that you're looking for. Look, the Pelicans have always been kind of that team with a lot of promise, a lot of potential, but they finally started to put it together. They are closing in on being top 10 in both offense and defense. They're one of the most red-hot teams in the NBA since the All-Star break, since January 1st. They're putting it together finally. Now, I have a lot of concerns over their ability to not completely fall apart in big moments like they have at several times versus the Lakers this season. But when you look at Zion Williamson, who has the most blocks over 3 games of any 3-game stretch of his career, when you look at Brandon Ingram, when you look at their wing depth, when you look at all of the things combined, this team actually is very dangerous. Everyone's kind of talking themselves into, ooh, what if the Lakers make a run, or the Warriors, or what about the Mavericks with Luka? What if the Pelicans are the team that's actually going to wind up surprising folks because they may be the most balanced team in the Western Conference outside of the Nuggets and Thunder. As for the bad, oh boy, we got that about Rudy Gobert and his comments this weekend about the officiating. Gobert insinuated this weekend, and the Wolves have had problems with officiating all this season. Anthony Edwards has complained about it. Gobert has gone off several times, but he's continued what's becoming a little bit more of a trend, which is he suggested that betting is actually one of the reasons why the calls didn't go the Wolves' way this weekend. That's beginning to be a problem. And obviously, the league does not look kindly on that, resulting in a $100,000 fine for the French rejection. But I have a question. Why is it no one ever complains after they win a game? No one's ever like, oh man, we got a great whistle. Like, we just really got a lot of calls we didn't deserve tonight, and that's why we got this win. The league should really look into it. No one ever does that. No one. No one's ever like, wow, we really came out on the plus side of the officiating this weekend. NBA officiating's in a rough spot. There's a lot of new officials. That's a concern. I think that there are reasonable concerns to be had. We can have conversations about the Tim Donaghy scandal and the fallout from that. We can talk about how Scott Foster still employed by the league. We can talk about all the concerns about how betting scandals have touched all the major sports except the NBA so far and what that means and the concerns over that. But these complaints are so transparently just, we lost a game and I'm mad about it. The Wolves are top 5 in free throw rate. Those teams have struggled since the All-Star break. Their team total is 7-3 to the under since All-Star break, because they're one of these teams that relies on getting the line. And all of those teams, we've seen them drop considerably. I think there's a real problem when it comes to insinuating that there's something insidious going on. If you want to have a conversation about the officiating, there are ways to do that. Going off the cuff after a game, even though I understand that emotions are high, is not the way to do it.
My biggest problem with Gobert wasn't even that he said this after the game. It's that he was gesturing during the game, which actually cost his team the game even more so than said officiating. But I think you're right. It feels like people are just complaining about the refs, and there's not really a basis, in my opinion, to pin this as anything to do with sports betting. It's just something that's there. That's something like you can easily grab hold of and use to be accusatory and complain about the officials. And we've seen this all season. There's been criticism of the officiating benefiting offense more so than defense. And we've begun, Matt, to see some consequences from that.
Yeah, we're seeing this change now, and there's been a lot of conversation about this, about it's being described as, quote, a rule change when it's not. A better way to say it is that it's a rule interpretation. And we were on last week telling you about this, about how unders have been hitting so consistently. And we told you last week about the top 5 teams in free throw rate and how they've dipped considerably in terms of going to the under consistently since. And we've continued to see that happen since last week. Those trends are still heading. You track those in the Action Network app. Yeah, one more thing. When we talk about speaking from the officiating, teams that benefit from this rule change, because that's one of the interesting things here is, all right, so if the league is kind of shifting in what is being allowed, and really what we're seeing is teams are not getting into the bonus as often. Foul rate on drives, not in the restricted area, are way up. Or way down, rather. So what does that mean? It means that all these little bump fouls that get you in the bonus earlier, those are the ones that are going away. That's why we're seeing this free throw drop. It's not necessarily because they're not calling fouls on shot attempts. Miami is an interesting example here. Miami's 1-11 this season when the opponent attempts 5 more free throws than they do. 1-11. That's a pretty stark number. They are 11-5 against the spread overall since February 1st, and none of those games have included a free throw differential of that kind of magnitude. Miami seems to be a team, and this makes a lot of sense, right? Tough defensive squad that is benefiting from how the rules are now being interpreted. Additionally, I think the San Antonio Spurs are one that you want to look at as well. They're 2-16 when the opponent has 5 more free throws than they do, and they also are hitting above 60% ATS since February 1st. So those two teams, the Spurs and the Heat, are two teams you should be probably capping a little bit differently since the NBA started to shift how they're calling fouls.
I think that's really good advice. All right, let's get your best bet for tonight.
Yeah, so gave this one out last night on Buck. You can catch that in the Action Network app and on youtube.com/the Action Network. Also, by the way, tonight, Buckets Live, 11 Eastern. It'll be me, Jay Money, and Mike Fiddles. We're going to go over all the action from tonight, the big picture topics, and we'll hit on what are the best bets for tomorrow. But my best bet for today is going to be the Hornets team total under 106.5. Let's get a North Carolina bet for the launch of sports betting in North Carolina. The Hornets team total has gone under in 7 of their last 9 games. They're facing Detroit, so you got to go like, well, okay, yeah, but they're going to score on Detroit. Detroit's actually 16th in defending the rim, and that's where the vast majority of the Hornets scoring comes in, because they do not have much of anything else on this team. Can't create shots, can't generate them, and can't hit threes. So they try and get to the rim a lot. Well, that's actually one area where Detroit, with its 700 centers, does pretty well. Since the deadline, when the Hornets made all those trades and swapped out Gordon Hayward and moved Terry Rozier, the Hornets are 29th in offense. So love this spot. I think it's a really good track. They're one of the teams that's been consistently hitting under lately. I'll hit the Hornets team total under 106.5.
Hornets have lost 6 of their last 7 games. Of course, did manage to beat the Brooklyn Nets. But Matt, thanks as always for keeping us updated across the NBA.
God bless you. And God bless the NBA.
And if you're in North Carolina and want to usher in the launch of sports betting by tailing Matt and fading the Hornets, make sure you first head over to actionnetwork.com or the Action app. We have articles with all the information you need to get the best sign-up bonuses for all of the apps and sports books newly available in the state. To college basketball, men's conference tournaments continue this week as we bring in Stuckey to give his favorite futures. Stuck, hope you had a good weekend. The real fun begins now. Where would you like to start?
Let's go to the Big 12, and I think Baylor actually has some value here. Could find them, I think, around 8-1 still. There's a lot of injury concerns throughout the league, specifically with Kansas. Hunter Dickinson, Kevin McCullough's been banged up. It's a team that already lacked depth. I doubt they try to push them. And if Kansas does, I don't know if they will on a back-to-back. And that's who Baylor would presumably get in the quarterfinals. They have the double bye to the quarterfinals. So I think they have a pretty, easy path to the semis, a much easier path than Iowa State, who would have to play either Kansas State or Texas. Kansas State, they just beat Iowa State. That would be a brawl. Texas, super talented team. So I think Baylor, which is around 8-1, Iowa State's around 3 plus 350, 4-1. And I have those teams power rated very similarly. So like they're neck and neck. And while all these other teams are dealing with injuries, Baylor just got Langston Love back. It's one of the best 6 men in the country. Gives them rebounding, gives them scoring punch off the bench. So they added another key piece. Their defense has improved since they've gone to more zone. And if they do face Houston, who is the favorite in the final, they have the shot makers, which you need to actually score on this Houston defense. Houston went up huge against Baylor. Baylor came all the way back when they played in the regular season and actually forced overtime. So I think Baylor has value. I don't think that there should be this big of a spread or dichotomy between Baylor and Iowa State, which I would have close to a pick if both teams made it to the semis. And those Kansas injuries, I think, make Baylor even more intriguing.
Right. So Baylor, as the 3 seed, has the 3rd best odds behind Iowa State, as you mentioned, and Houston, obviously the favorite. What else do you like in terms of conference tourney picks?
Let's head to the Big 10. I think Nebraska, another 3 seed that has the double bye. They have some value. I think you can get, I haven't seen an updated price, but as a couple minutes ago, 10-11 to 1 out there. Since February 1st, this team borderline top 10 in overall adjusted efficiency, 2nd in overall adjusted defensive efficiency. I like their path, which would be if chalk holds, Indiana, who they blew out twice. They'd get an Illinois team in the semis. If Illinois gets there, Illinois first got to get past a red hot Ohio State team or a desperate Iowa team that they did beat twice. But Nebraska took Illinois to overtime in Champaign. They are playing their best basketball of the year. They can keep Illinois out of transition if that's the matchup. Third percentile nationally in limiting transition opportunities. And then Purdue, which is the rightful favorite. If they get to the final, Nebraska at least defends the post really well. So they have a shot against Edey. I think Nebraska's playing too well right now to be getting this big of a price, especially with the double bye in their back pocket and the path that they have. So I think the Huskers have some value in the Big Ten.
For sure. So Purdue around plus 100 or so. Then you get Illinois and then Nebraska, again, the 3 seed. How about some long shots to consider?
Yeah, when you're looking for long shots, you want to look for potential teams that play games with a lot of variance. So what does that mean? Maybe it's teams that shoot or give up a lot of 3-pointers, which introduces more variance. Lower possession games, so teams that play really slow. A team that fits the mold is Villanova. While I'm not a big fan of this Villanova team, they've been running hot from 3. Not a huge fan of their head coach, Kyle Neptune, either. In the Big East, where you have to take out the juggernaut that is UConn, at least Villanova is on the other side of the bracket, and Villanova checks all of those boxes. They play really slow. They shoot a ton of 3s. They go under screen, so they give up a ton of 3s. So their games are lower possession with a lot of 3-point variance. They also have a deep bench. So if they want to make a run here, they should have the legs to at least do it. And since February 1st, they've been a top 20 team in overall adjusted efficiency. Justin Moore is now fully healthy, which has helped. So Villanova, which might be playing for their tournament lives, I think has some value as a potential long shot. And then you got to keep in mind that Marquette, Tyler Kolek's status up in the air. I doubt they push him. Why would you want to push him with that injury ahead of the dance? You're already safely in. And then the path would be, Creighton, who they played basically to a draw twice during the regular season. And then you have to hope maybe UConn gets picked off, or if you get the UConn, you just hope for a miracle. Maybe you hedge some, you might just hope for 3-point variance. But Villanova checks all of the boxes as a potential long shot because of how they play. Another team worth considering, price is starting to come down from where it was, is USC. Another team over the past 4 weeks, top 20 team in overall adjusted efficiency. They dealt with injuries all year. They were picked second in the preseason to win the Pac-12. They're peaking at the right time. They're now fully healthy. They have a dynamite backcourt. They have 2, awesome defenders. They're really good defending in the interior. They have the bigs and the size to give Arizona and Ballo some trouble. They just beat Arizona by double digits. They'll have to do it again if they get to the second round. But this is a team that's 5-2 over its past 7 games. It's 2 losses. They controlled throughout, blew leads late. They lost in double overtime to Colorado, who's also peaking, and then at Washington State. 2 tough games, and they were the only losses. Isaiah Collier, potential lottery pick, leading the way. You have Boogie Ellis, who can go for 30 on any given night. USC is a team that's peaking at the right time, ton of talent, and matches up pretty well with Arizona. So if they can just find a way to beat Arizona again, look out.
Well, we just saw USC on the women's side win the last Pac-12 tournament. Would be cool to close it out in the same fashion on the men's side. Stuckey, thank you as always for all of the tips, and for more where this came from, you can catch BBOC Wednesday, 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Stuck, thanks again.
Enjoy the madness.
If you've ever wanted to try the best version of the Action app, that time is now, because we're running a special offer on Action Pro. To celebrate the start of the NCAA tournament, you can try Pro Access for just $9.99 for the first month. With Action Pro, you get our biggest betting model edges, real-time money percentages, data-driven systems, NCAA tourney player prop projections from the predictive analytics team of Sean Kerner and Nick Giffen, and lots more. Just visit actionnetwork.com/madness to take advantage before this deal expires. That's actionnetwork.com/madness. To the NHL, the Isles have begun to turn things around under Patrick Roy. Since he took over, their record is 10-5-3 with a +13 goal differential. Their current 6-game win streak has put them back in a playoff spot for the first time in almost 2 months, and they've scored at least 4 goals in each of their past 5 games. As we say hello to our hockey expert and usually depressed Islanders fan, Michael Leboff, I'd imagine your mood has been somewhat better of late, but can the Isles actually sustain what they're doing enough to secure a wild card spot?
It looks like they can. I mean, as an Islander fan, you're kind of always just conditioned to wait for the other shoe to drop. So that is certainly going on in the back of my head. But if you look at the numbers, everything kind of checks out here. The Islanders have been incredible defensively, which is a huge turnaround from what they were under Lane Lambert when they were giving up more scoring chances than basically any team in the NHL through the first, 45, 50 games or so. And now, since Patrick Roy has come back, they are near the top of the league in those categories. They're doing a very good job of limiting quality scoring chances. The goaltending excuse me, the goaltending has drastically improved because of that. Ilya Sorokin was having a good season if you looked under the hood, but I think a lot of people were underwhelmed with his surface level numbers, and it was because of his workload. And now that they've made his life a little bit easier, he's starting to round into form. The Islanders they're clicking into gear here, and there's nothing that tells you that this is fraudulent just yet. So I feel confident, which is not what I want.
I was going to say, it's a bit of a change of pace to hear you sound optimistic, but the Isles will look to extend their win streak tonight against the Kings. So what's your pick for the game?
Yeah, I think that eventually we're going to see the market begin to maybe get too high on the Islanders, but because of the schedule spot, it hasn't happened quite yet. I do think if I had to pick a side here on the two-way money line, it would be the Islanders as the underdog. They have a distinct goaltending advantage, and as I said, they're doing a really good job defensively. But actually, my favorite bet here is for this game to go to overtime. The Islanders have played a ton of overtime games, second most in the league to the Boston Bruins this season, and they are now going up against a team in Los Angeles who wants to play a similar kind of tidy, neat, practical game of hockey or brand of hockey. So there shouldn't be too much space out there. I don't really see either one of these teams running away from the other. So I think the overtime bet will be in play throughout here. So I think at plus 350, this is a decent bet, especially with the Islanders. This is the end of a decent road trip here. So who knows what kind of, if you'll get their best effort, but I do think that they'll be able to turn this, and they'll want to turn this into a bit of a slog.
Sounds good. Well, elsewhere in the Metropolitan Division, the Rangers host the Devils tonight. How are you betting this one?
Yeah, this one's kind of the polar opposite of the Kings and Islanders game. I could see this thing getting way out of hand. The Devils their season's basically done. They know it. They're frustrated. This will be, one of their Super Bowls, if you want to use that cliche, going up against their biggest rival, a team that is going to the playoffs. So I think they'll try to exact some revenge as well, with what happened with Matt Rempe in the last game, in the last meeting with these two teams. So I think that this could be a game littered with power plays. The Devils' goaltending has been terrible throughout the season. It could be Kaapo Kähkönen's debut for his new team. No idea how a goaltender will react to that, to being in a new system. The Rangers are going with their backup, Jonathan Quick. Igor Shesterkin has been terrific for them of late, and he's had to been. And part of this equation is that the Rangers, as we were talking about with the Islanders, their defensive numbers being quite good. The Rangers' defensive metrics under the hood, they look abject right now. They are near the bottom of the league in terms of giving up 5-on-5 scoring chances and high danger scoring chances, but the goaltending has just bailed them out, and they're always a threat to win those kind of games because they have such a clinical offense and great special teams. But eventually, you're going to throw up a dud or two when you're playing like that, and this Devils offense can take advantage of that. So I could see both these teams putting up a crooked number here. So I think if you wanted to go over 9.5, actually, you can get a long shot number there, like plus 850, even higher than that. If you want to throw like a correct score bet out there for like 6-4 either side, I think you can do that. But if you want to just, simplify it, it would be the over 6.5 here. But this game, I think, can go off the rails quick and stay there. And we could see a really, really wonky score line by the end of the game.
Knowing you, Leboff, you can't just simplify it. You can't just do the -110 odds. You got to find a long shot or some value out there.
Yeah, I mean, in this kind of game, it's worth it, right? Like this thing could be, I think, 4-4 in the middle of the game with the way that these two teams play. So it sets up pretty well for those of us who like to chase a price, and I'm definitely among them.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, Devils currently 6 points out of a wild card spot, and they did lose both meetings against the Rangers in New Jersey earlier this season. Michael Leboff, thanks so much.
Of course, go Isles.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Mike, you can easily reference by following green.daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. That's all for Green.Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again Tuesday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.